Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we bring you critical and in-depth reviews of just about every indie game we can get our hands on, and today we're actually going to take a look at one that's way out of left field, looking at Considerate for the Nintendo Switch. And no, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the Japanese word at the beginning of the title, because when I inevitably botch it, that's just going to be way too many comments acknowledging the inferiority of my multilingualism. But suffice to say, if you want to know what that Japanese word means, it actually is a bit of an idiom that means something close to consider the room, or read the mood, or read between the lines, with the American title being Consider It, which obviously leaves us an opening for what could be a very unique game. And while there is no explicit story for Considerate, the only real background information that we need to know is more about the considerate nature of collective cultures such as those found in Southeast Asia. In collective cultures, as opposed to individualistic cultures like here in the United States, people actually work together as a singular organism and require individuals to be a little bit more considerate. I mean, think about that. How crazy of a premise is that? So crazy we should probably design a video game around people actually being considerate to their fellow man. But diving into the actual mechanics of the video game, it's more akin to those micro games that you'd see in games like WarioWare or Toridama Brave Challenge. But unlike the hectic, frantic, off-the-wall nature of games like WarioWare, and unlike Toridama Brave Challenge that really seeks to test your reflexes, Considerate actually seeks to test your awareness of social etiquette and your ability to conform. And though certain situations may seem incredibly obvious no matter where you're from, certain ones are definitely a little bit more cultural. Such as situations where it's appropriate not to acknowledge something going wrong in public, or to stand up, bow, and then be seated in a classroom setting. But regardless of which one of the 100 mini-games you're playing through, even if you have some trouble figuring it out, the controls are so simple that any frustration is quickly abated by a pretty quick laugh. So even if you do think you might not have enough outside-the-box Japanese cultural awareness to really engross yourself in the game, it's still gonna be fun to play. In pretty much every single situation, whether it's just thrown at you at random or it's even preceded by a bit of text, the only thing that you'll have to do as the player is focus on what other red character or whatever red icon might be on the screen, and simply choose the appropriate action, whether that is indeed taking an action or not doing anything at all. And while those types of settings that do require you to focus at least a little bit on each situational context do exist, most of the situations within Considerate are fairly obvious as to what to do, with several just relying on timing, such as doing a wave in an audience or jumping rope with a group of friends. But if you do manage to beat the game, which in all honesty only takes about a half an hour, a half dozen new modes of the game open up to allow you to replay in multiple different modes and formats. You can play a solo campaign by yourself right off the bat, as well as a multiplayer mode where you and a partner kind of get to control the situations. But it might actually be helpful to play through on your own at least once so you kind of have an idea of what to do. Other than that, new challenge modes open up that allow you to play certain games over and over for best scores, and other modes may allow you a little bit more of a quick play version that allow you to do 10 puzzles at a time in different chapters of the game. Other than that, scrolling through the options menu after you've beaten the game reveals that there are quite a lot of secrets, though unlocking them might be just as big a mystery as what unlocking the secrets does in the first place. But for my own playthrough, what I can assume is that completing a puzzle perfectly or absolutely failing a puzzle does unlock one of those secrets in the options menu. Other than that, looking at the graphics for Considerate, it's arguably basic. It's pretty much black and white except for the actionable items in red, which both make your involvement in the game as the player pretty straightforward and highlight just the comical, goofy nature of the entire game. Because, at least as I've found playing games like Considerate or Toridama Brave Challenge, the lack of investment in the graphics actually goes a long way in just making everything feel just that much more goofy. If I'm being honest, though, looking at the soundtrack of the game, it's hard to recall that there really is one, and I'm certain that the soundtrack really isn't the focus, so that's probably not a terrible thing. But moving on from the general gaming scenario and away from its visual and audio presentation, there are some things to consider before diving into Considerate. And first and foremost would probably be the game's length in relation to its price. Even on sale, Considerate is a few dollars. And no matter how cute and whimsical a game is, it's probably gonna be a bit of a hard sell for only about a half hour of gameplay. That being said, as there is a solo challenge mode as well as a partner gameplay and certain unlockable features to go back through after you've beaten the game, there is a good bit of replay value if you consider it to be more like a party game. The next thing to consider would be that this game does lightly poke fun at the sort of collectivist culture from Southeast Asia, specifically Japan. And whether that triggers you and sends you into orbit or not is totally up to you, but what it does mean for any gamer, regardless of your particular social stances, is that it does, to at least some degree, require some extra cultural insight. If you've lived in Japan, awesome. If you've studied it, you're probably still good. If you watch anime, you'll probably still do fine, but if you're completely ignorant of Japanese culture, you might miss a few turns and have to play it again. But like I said earlier in the review, the controls are so simple. There's generally only one action that you can perform in a certain situation. So even if you have absolutely no idea what's going on, you can still play the game just as well as anybody else. And so I'd have to say, taking a step back and looking at Considerate as a game, having never even realized that it existed and then playing it from start to finish, it is objectively fun, with bizarre situations and just stuff way out of left field, and there's so much replay value in such a quick, trippy little game that if you are in for a goofy diversion, it's gonna be a good time, but that's gonna be up to you to determine if the price is right. But that's neither here nor there, just a fun thing to note, and as the game is so incredibly short and very straightforward, even if slightly confusing, that does about bring us to the end of the review of Consider It now for the Nintendo Switch. So if you enjoyed the review, or especially if you found it helpful, feel free to throw us a like or a comment to show your support, and don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. As you can see by this review alone, there are some crazy unique indie games out there, and if it's on the eShop, whether it's an easy hard pass or an unforgettable gem, chances are you're going to find out about it right here. But anyway, this has been The Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.